Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grit. Today we have Will, the co-founder of Fold. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, give us a brief background about yourself before co-founding Fold.
Yeah, I've been a co-founder entrepreneur for the last decade, building, consumer products that kind of bring new payment methods to market. That is a new way of paying or transacting, and so we find new ways to introduce that. And so I've done that myself at previous startups. I founded Membo, which was around recurring subscription payments, then went on to go build out the Google Store, which is Google's answer to the Apple Store. From that is where I met my co-founder, Matt Luongo, and we both had a similar interest in Bitcoin. And so a few years later, after that meeting, we had come back together to really reimagine the onboarding experience into Bitcoin and crypto, to offer new ways for everyday people to get involved that weren't quite available.
Amazing, interesting, intriguing. So, product market fit, the first 5,000 users, making them stick on. So you have the experience of building products, right? But every product is different, right? So every product has its own challenges and everything. And crypto is an evolving stage, but it's also getting crowded as well, right? But
Yep.
I believe as of today, Fold has more than 30,000, 50,000 users, right?
Yep.
So what was the early experience like for the first 1,000 to 5,000 users, making them stick on, the stickiness? And
building in crypto and Bitcoin is interesting because it comes with several challenges that building outside of that space doesn't have, but it also has a few benefits. And one of them is that there is a very strong community and group that is fairly easy to find. And so we knew that if we could bring a product to market that we felt offered new value, so instead of having to buy Bitcoin, we allow you to earn it without it. So it's kind of changes the model. You don't have to risk your hard-earned money to get exposure to Bitcoin. And so we really created an MVP, and we said, hey, if this product doesn't speak for itself and we know exactly how to reach the Bitcoin and crypto community, then we'll know very quickly within the first 30 to 60 days if this product has legs at all. And so we built a quick MVP of this, launched it in the app stores. In the first, at launch, we had 15,000 users. And so what this tells us is that number one is whether you're building in crypto or Bitcoin or wherever, you need to be very focused on how are you not just going to get that 5,000 users, but that 5,000 users is proof of whether you should continue working on the product. And you need to get to that level as fast as possible. So you want to make sure you're spending the least amount of time building for something no one wants, and make sure that you're able to pivot and really focus your resources. And so for us, it happened very fast, which is not the case with all of the products I've worked on in the past. Some take years to get to that level, and some never get to that level. And so it's really interesting to see with Fold specifically, us launching this thing, spending a lot of time making sure that we're building the right product, and then actually seeing the market take it up and getting us past that 5,000 users to 15,000 users right at launch.
Nice. So post-COVID, I personally believe that, COVID should be acting as a catalyst for the cryptocurrency space. So what are your thoughts, and have you seen the effect?
Yeah, it's going to be complicated and messy right now because we're dealing with a couple things. COVID has brought us to many different crises are involved with COVID. There's health, there's financial, but in terms of the financial markets, it has caused a grab for cash and liquidity. And so what you saw when COVID first hit is a tank of the markets and Bitcoin. They all went down and were pretty much correlated together. And that's because you have investors and funds who are trying to grab any liquid cash that they can. And the cool thing about Bitcoin is that there is no way to close the market. It's always open 24/7. It doesn't close on the weekends. And so people went to the most liquid assets possible. And so they grabbed a lot of their Bitcoin, turned it back into fiat cash so they had that liquidity to pay debts and such. However, what we're seeing is actually today, Bitcoin has increased quite a bit. And that's as the markets begin to as the liquidity, the immediate needs for liquidity are solved. You're going to have a long-term view of, wow, the Federal Reserve is currently printing what seems like an infinite amount of money, and that comes with some risks in the future. So Bitcoin becomes an interesting hedge to that. And you start to see all around the world, this is a global crisis that we're currently in, and Bitcoin is fundamentally a global currency. And so it has a few advantages that I think position it well to weather this storm.
Got it. Got it. So going forward, any three pieces of advice that you would like to give to someone, a founder who's managing remote teams, because everyone has been forced to go remote now. So how are you coping up with it, and especially the engineering and everything?
Yeah, so Fold has been remote first since founding. So we've built the company specifically to be remote. So we've been very lucky in this climate that our day-to-day operations have been not affected very much. But for other founders who I constantly talk to and share ideas, I have a few thoughts. Number one, switching to remote workforce is not like flipping a switch or just saying, hey, we're just going to work from home now instead of the office. It requires a whole different type of infrastructure. And so don't be frustrated right now if you're hitting some inefficiencies with remote work, or you feel like you have lost some momentum. That's going to be the case because remote work requires very specific infrastructure and culture to really make it work right. And so what founders should be doing now is starting to bring a remote strategy into their plans. So plan for a potential that we are in a remote environment for a very long time, and start making the changes now. And that means that you hire differently if you're a remote workforce versus a in-person office co-located workforce. It is incredibly more important to hire for self-starters, for people that have in the past proven to be autonomous and understand how to execute on a goal without constant in-person feedback loops. It also takes people who are curious and are patient with other people. And so I think number one, make sure that when you are hiring people, start to look for qualities that are really important to a remote workforce. The second is start to work on your the way that you interact. You cannot rely on face-to-face every day. And so this does mean that you need to put extra effort into recording your thoughts, ideas, outcomes of meetings, because in a remote scenario, work is more asynchronous than synchronous. You have people waking up later than other people. You have people in different time zones. And so it's really important to allow everybody to get on the same page, even if they're not working at the same time. And that is really important for making sure that you're documenting the work you're doing so that people can immediately, once they're at work, they can get on the same page of where you're at. And then I think the other one is there is definitely going to be a sense of a less control. So managers who are used to managing teams that are co-located or in person have developed certain behaviors and approaches that are based on having your team right in front of you, that you can actually see what they're working on. And for many managers, once we move to a remote workforce, that becomes not a great thing, not a great behavior to have learned, because it starts to create ideas of whether your workforce is not being efficient enough, and so you really need to kind of relax on the control part and more focus on outcomes. So less about do people look like they're working and more about the outcome of their work. And so I think changing workforce dynamics, making sure the right tools, making sure that you as a manager are more geared towards outcomes versus the process of working, because it looks very different for everybody. And then lastly is it's not all fun. It's going to have other distractions. You will have family be more involved in Zoom calls. You will have You will need to write more things down to get people on the same page. You will have to get over the fact that you can't have spontaneous design sessions with people in person, which can be very powerful in person. And so all of these things can be tweaked and accounted for. But the transition is not going to be simple. But once you get there, I think your company will be stronger and more efficient.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great having you. So, but we
I
could,
think I lost the audio here. I can't hear you.
well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
It was great having you. So, but my marketing team tells me we have to keep the podcast within 8 to 10 minutes. Otherwise, we would have gotten more information from you. So, good luck.
I love it. It was great to be here. Thank you for having me.